And away we go. It is the nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com, brought to you as always by our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. Get to the app. They will deliver pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop and get your Galactic goodness, or get down to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up, and you can save 15%. All right. Surprise.
Yeah. What up?
Aaron wasn't feeling well. He produced a couple shows tonight. He was ready to hit the hay. And instead, we got to fill in. I figured you guys have been all about the basketball talk lately. So why not have our guy, Bergie Clark, Justin Berg, joining us to talk some hoops tonight. It's been a little bit since we've heard from you. I know it's always a busy season for you with Leah's landscaping and everything you got going on, but we love when we get a chance to have you on the show. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here. I haven't been as plugged in the last few weeks. It's just kind of getting to that point where I see how the season's going, and I've lost a little interest, you would say.
It is what it is. As we've talked about, Berg is going through a lot. Priorities are priorities, and sometimes one priority elevates above another priority if that priority doesn't prove itself to be at the top of the list. ECU, it stinks. You know, giving up a 26-6 run over the final 9 minutes of the game, you can't let that happen. But there were underlying issues in this game that went far deeper than the run that ECU went on, or whatever, however you want to compartmentalize what happened in the final trip to Greenville. Honestly, that's only fitting for the final trip to Greenville, right?
Yeah,
you dominate them, you own the game, and then you piss down your leg. The moment's too big, and you walk out of there with a head-scratching loss.
What was the final? Did UC got over 70, right?
Yeah, it was 70. They lost by 4. It was
75-71 or something.
I have it right here. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, 75-71.
Yeah, because I mean, I think back to the time when Larry Davis led the troops down there. We didn't even get to 50, I believe.
Yeah, or right above, whatever it was.
I'm pretty sure it was. I want to say it was 50-46. It wasn't good. I'm wrong. Yeah. So, look, going into that game, I expected an L without Victor Lock-in. I mean, if Victor's healthy, I figure they can pull it out. But just how the past has, all the games I've seen in my life of UC at ECU, and the way
they've won all but like 3, but they were all a nightmare. Every one of them was a nightmare.
Exactly. I mean, they had the one where I think Harvey made a 3 late. It was at that game a few years ago. And
yeah, Dave had a tip in last year to win.
Yeah, I think didn't Adams Woods make one the Cumberland year that was kind of a big shot. I feel like maybe that was, I can't remember if that was that year or not.
That would have been the same year with Harvey.
Oh, maybe it was Harvey. Okay, but yeah. So the fact that they lost the game is not surprising to me. Like you said, giving up. I didn't realize it was 26-6 run to finish.
They were up 16 with 9 minutes to go.
Yeah, and the same thing that happened against Tulane was just like, dude, every time they went down the floor, they scored. So part of it is frustration and like, oh, well, UC should have been able to stem that tide, and Wes should have made adjustments. And sometimes, dude, like the other team just fucking won't miss. Like it just, like everything they throw up goes in. Is that really what's going to happen here? Like the Tulane game, yeah, they got layups. They sure did. But like every floater is perfectly into the basket. It never rims out. It never hits the back rim. Like just all of them are going to go in. Like that's what's going to happen. So like sometimes it's just like, dude, the other team just gets scorching hot. They start believing, and then just whatever reason, the basketball gods, every shot goes in. So that's part of it.
Here's what I would say to that.
Yeah.
Here's where I think UC screwed themselves on that front. They just were content trading baskets in the first 11 minutes of the second half. Like, I don't know how much you got to watch, but not much.
How much do you think I watched?
None, maybe none.
The last 2 minutes.
But it was one of those situations where, like, nobody stopped anybody for like 8 minutes, like just up and down the floor.
Yeah, the Tulane game was I watched the Tulane game. That was very similar. By the way, I love Tulane, and I hope they get into the NCAA tournament somehow. And if they're like an 11 seed,
they're going to have to win the American to get there.
I know. I'm just saying. I mean, maybe they beat Houston, and who knows? But like that team's fun, and like they'd be a weird team to play. And but yeah. So same situation, right? We're just bucket after bucket,
right?
So yeah, I mean, but look. So you don't have your best rim protector, your best defensive rebounder on the floor. So that's gonna be a factor. You obviously you don't have Finney, who just was coming back, and you don't have. I mean, Newman's been out the whole year. So now you're down to and the Skillings and Reed haven't proven like, hey, you can put them in crunch time for significant minutes in a close game to where. So now you're looking at like Nolly and DeJulius and Adams Woods playing tons of minutes, and Davenport, obviously, even if Davenport wasn't tired, he ain't a good defender. Now you're just, what do you expect? Like, teams are getting whatever they want, and in the Tulane game there was so many back doors and just penetration, floaters, stuff in the paint. The ECU game, I'm assuming, was similar. I know they hit some threes, right? They were 5 for 10. In the second half, and then they were what'd you say, 12 for 19 from 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and the Houston game, going back to that one, even on the road, Houston scored whenever they wanted down the stretch, and if they didn't make the first shot, they would get the offensive rebound. ECU out rebounded the shit out of UC. Not a surprise when Victor Locken, who's like top 40 or 50 in the country in offense and defensive rebounding percentage, is just out. So as much as I looked at that one thread last night that was like no more excuses or whatever that shit was.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of like, hate against Wes and whatever. Dude, like their best player is not on the floor. You could say Nolly's their best player, but I think maybe you could say their most like important player would be Vic because of his rebounding on both sides of the ball. He's an automatic bucket, like pretty much when he gets the ball in the paint, and then he can protect the rim a little bit. And obviously, these teams are getting right to the rack, like Tulane that whole second half. So all these things about they blew the lead late. It's like, dude, it's like, here, why don't you whoever name a team, and like, okay, Houston, let's just take Jarris Walker out of the lineup for the last few games. Like, are they shittier? Yeah, probably. Like,
well, and here's the the double-edged sword with Vic. He's probably your most important player on both ends.
That's what I'm saying.
Like a lot of times your best player is like first on offense and like fourth on defense, or first on defense and like third on offense. He's probably our most important player on both ends of the floor.
Right. So that has to factor in. Yeah. I mean, you got to think the NIT selection committee, they better be paying attention to that. They better not hold that against the Bearcats here. It's like so part of me, like, dude, okay, going back to, all right, the NKU loss, they didn't do shit in Maui, and then they don't beat Xavier. It's like, dude, they're not making the NCAA tournament this year. Like, they're just not, and that is not large, at least. Like, obviously, there's always the chance to win in the tournament, but like at that point, it was like, unless you beat Houston on the road, which they damn near almost did.
Right.
Which can Wes get any credit for that? I know they blew it, but and then it's like it's just not going to happen. So it's like, why are we so worried about this game last night? I understand that it sucks to blow a lead to a piece of crap ECU team, and it's frustrating to play in that arena and like lose again or suck in it. But okay, so let's say they win that game. So what are they? A 5 seed in the NIT instead of a 6? Like, are we really? Do we really care? Like, the only path to the NCAA tournament is winning the conference tournament. So I just didn't care. It's like once you didn't beat Memphis at home, and then you didn't beat Houston on the road. It was like, that's it. Like, those are the last chances. Like, yeah, you could say, oh, they could win out. No, they're going to win. Well, they're not going to win out, especially when Victor Locken gets hurt. That was kind of it. So
Right.
that game against Eastern Carolina was, I mean, in my mind, is pretty much in all the scheme of just sports and UC basketball is pretty irrelevant. Like, I know it sucks to lose. I know it's frustrating and it's embarrassing. To who? Like, what do you think? Like, there was a national television audience there? Like, no one cares about that game. East Carolina barely cares that they won that game.
Right.
So I know Roy Williams is there, and oh man, too bad for Wes. He lost in front of his coach, and it's like, all right, I get it.
Right.
I'm just not like that stressed about it because it just doesn't have any real meaning on the season. Like the season's already done. Now, if you want to talk about the season as a whole and be like, that's been underwhelming, and obviously go back to certain losses and just basically there's no signature win on this whole schedule this year. They've had
Right.
like 7 or 8 chances to like put up a win that's at least something that somebody would care about. I mean, you could say UCF at home, but they were missing some guys, and it's like, all right, that was a pretty good win. That's probably their best win. And obviously now like that Tulane win's looking good because they're awesome and I love them. Remember how I used to always like I used to like SMU when Jankovic was there.
Yeah.
Like I always had like one AAC team that I kind of like, and I hate every other team. So Tulane's now that squad. So in my mind, I'm just kind of like I didn't get like 1% pissed or frustrated about it, which I know I would have like a few years ago or whatever. If we were in the running for an at-large NCAA tournament bid and they lose the game, now I'm like losing my mind.
You're furious, yeah.
But however, like if you go back in the past, like they've lost that to that team and still made the NCAA tournament those years. So
Right.
But I get it. It sucks to blow a lead. It's embarrassing, and I'm sure obviously the guys feel terrible and they tried and they just ran out of gas. So that's all I really have to say about that game. I obviously did not watch the first 38 minutes of it because why the F would I? Like you're not paying me to watch it. And I
I'm
don't
not.
and the season's already like pretty much toast from an at large. So and I hate watching us play at East Carolina. So I just decided I'm opting out.
I will say though, you also never asked me to pay you this season.
That's true. But I know that what the funny thing to me is like there's certain BCJ members who hold it against me, especially last year, because I admitted that I just skipped games.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, bro, why am I subjecting myself to a pointless game against a dumb team? Like, I don't understand how I'm all of a sudden not as big of a fan because I just decided not to like waste an hour and 45 minutes of my life on watching us play fucking East Carolina on the road. Every time we played down there, I've hated it, even when we've won. I remember there was that one like Nasir Brooks blocked like 6 shots, and that was like the only reason we barely beat them. It was like, I hate all of those. So anyway, that being said, I do have like one thought with Victor Locken being out. Where is Sage Tolentino? Is he alive? Like, so
I think they are.
This. So we lost a 7-footer.
Trying to get him a medical red shirt, so he's a freshman again next year.
Okay, I was gonna say because it's like, bro, like he's 7 feet, and we lost a 7-footer, and he really can't play like 4 minutes at least, or 8 or
right
10?
Now. He's physically. I just think he has so much more work to do that like it wasn't. They gave it a look, and I just think he needs another year of seasoning,
okay,
if you will.
All right. Well, that's concerning in a couple levels, but I get it.
Well, he missed his he missed a year of basketball. He came back in his senior season, but still was like very slow to get up to speed because he messed up his knee.
Right, but then what was he doing to get the one game look that he got this year? How did he get that?
I think they kind of panicked when, John was out and then Rob was hurt and Kalu was terrible at the beginning. I think they kind of were like, numbers, like all of a sudden your 13th guy that you didn't count on is now like your 10th guy.
Yeah.
And everybody gets a little panicky, right? We've all been there.
So, but I mean, so he's how far are we talking? Like 2 years away from him even playing? Like, or you think just next year he'll be able to play some? But
that's going to depend on the development.
Yeah,
like,
I know. That was my only thought. It was like, so Vic's out. Like, don't we have another really tall dude? Can we put him in? But obviously, he's not going to play. So, look, this team. You got look. I mean, when you Vic and Landers and DeJulius is a really good three to start with, but there's just not a whole lot else there. Adams Woods has improved this year. I'll give him that, but he's still like he just doesn't quite have it. And obviously, Davenport, we've already been through that a million times. There's been 100 threads about him. He tries, he cares. It's just it hasn't worked there. And then the freshmen haven't really developed as fast as we wanted, and that's usually the case with freshmen. And Finney being out, but even if Finney was healthy, I mean, I don't know, he wasn't giving you a ton. So, what's your, I don't know how deep you want to get into this. This doesn't have to be too long, but obviously with Wes, and there's both sides of the fence. You've got people who are like, dude, sometimes it takes 4 or 5 years, and other people are like, well, look at some of these other coaches who in year 1 or 2 are turning these programs around and things like that. Is it a combination of like Wes just hasn't had the best luck with maybe some of the people he's brought in, or is it just that it's just he has to kind of turn the roster over, and maybe we wanted him to be a little more ruthless and just kind of kick everybody out and start fresh, but he's just not going to do that. Obviously, the recruiting looking for next year and the year after is looking good so far. And we don't know yet about these, we don't know whether, how long it'll take Skillings and Reed to really be factors. So, I don't know, like, kind of just like, what's your overall feel for, I know obviously you're on the side of being patient, but like, how much on the other side of it do you see some merit to the argument of like, he hasn't?
I see all the merit to the argument because fans are impatient. Like, I get that. And that's not to say that I'm the most patient person in the world. Although when you've gone through shit like you and I have gone through, you learn patience a lot differently than you have earlier in your life.
Very true.
So my tolerance level is a lot different than others right now because I just have really fucking important shit to worry about every day.
Yeah.
That is not the outcome of a basketball game. Some people, I know people have gotten mad at me for saying that, but I'm just being honest. When a game ends, generally I don't care. Like I watched the game. Here's my thoughts on the game. Here's my analysis of what I saw from the game. But emotionally, I don't care. Because I can't. I can't. For Kelly, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go to the hospital and be in a shitty mood and be an asshole to the doctors tomorrow because UC lost. Like, anyhow.
Yeah. More so on the fact that not in terms of how you care, but like, yeah, okay.
I'm going to get to it. So when he got here, it was such a clusterfuck. The culture was destroyed. The culture that Mick had built over 13 years was completely destroyed. You essentially had 2 guys in Jeremiah and Micah that were committed to staying. That was what he had. Regardless of what he thought about those 2 or knew about those 2, that was the foundation of your team. He met with Vic 30 seconds after it, literally, as soon as he got done with his meeting with Vic got in a car, got on a plane, and went home to Russia to see his family for the first time in 2 years. So they had no clue what was going on with Vic. Dave was in a bad headspace. Dave will tell you. Dave has told you. he was in a bad headspace at that point in time. Was he going to transfer? There was a very legitimate thought he was going to quit basketball because he had lost his love for the game. And he was done. He was going to walk away. He was cool with that. There was nothing else.
Yeah.
Tari was in the portal. You had to Mike Saunders and
Mason
Madsen were in the portal. So you had to get them back. Tried to get Tari Eason back. And then all of that happened so late. And that was really the first year for the portal. Everything happened fast. We're starting to see now guys are taking their time a little bit more. They realize I don't have to rush. Like, it's not musical chairs where, like, in 30 seconds, the music's going to stop and I'm not going to have a spot. So guys are taking a little bit more time now. And so you, like, the Greensboro guys and Abdul Adu and John Newman and Odi Aguama, like, if I'd have told you in that situation, Justin, they could go get a couple guys that have started like 100 games in the ACC, you felt really good about that. If I'd have told you they're going to go get like the best defensive player in the SEC, you felt really good about that. Like, he got a couple significant pieces from the portal on paper. But what you don't know is how it's all going to fit when you're just cobbling everything together, for one, and for two, rebuilding the culture of a locker room that was shattered. There was no trust in that locker room. None. Even between the returning guys. Everybody was kind of like eggshells because they saw what had happened the year prior. So what's that do? That puts your staff on eggshells. That puts the way that you coach on eggshells because you're trying not to splinter another locker room. And you're trying to build a culture. And that's why a lot of that first year, I don't think you saw Wes, like, he's coaching hard this year. He's getting after guys. The South Florida game, he went off on JD for 8 minutes on the bench because he didn't like the way that he was playing. So you're starting to see how Wes wants to coach his teams. But you had that group, that first group, and then, okay, maybe Micah and Mikey, one of them had to go so you could bring in a point guard. Where I'm going with this is you had a list of things you thought were wrong with that team last year when you got to the end of the season, right?
Yes.
There wasn't enough length and athleticism.
No shot creation.
There was no shot creation. There was a serious problem on defense. There was a serious problem on the glass. You needed an experienced big that had played a ton of minutes at a commiserate level, and you needed somebody that on the wing that could really score. You get Landers, you get Kalu, who was a 16-7 guy in the A10, which is a commiserate level to the American Athletic Conference.
I think it's the USA. Same thing.
Old Dominion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know who's in what conference anymore. Conference USA, the A10, the American, they're all not that far apart from each other.
True.
Whatever. And then you go get Rob to solve the problem that you had on the perimeter defensively. You didn't have anybody that really could just lock somebody up. There were still things that there were still boxes that you didn't check. Because you can only check so many boxes. Like, you don't get to go out and get a new team every year when you're still trying to rebuild the foundation and rebuild the culture. They moved some guys on after last year. They kept some guys because you can't run everybody out year after year, especially when you're still in the American. Now, hopefully going into this offseason, you once again have a better snapshot of what your flaws are as you continue to build this roster. You're going to need shot creation still, because Dave's gone. But you're going to need guards that can play downhill.
Landers has got to be gone too, right? He's been in college for like 40 years.
I mean, that's the difference that NIL can potentially make. Right? The reason you never stayed in college before is because you couldn't get paid.
Oh, that's
now
true.
You can get paid.
Yeah.
Now, if UC comes in and says, here's 150,000 or two, not UC, but a collective or whatever, here's $200,000 for you to stay another year, or you can go to the G League and make 60. The better option is coming back and playing another year. Like, that's changed the dynamics of that.
Yeah.
Where that guy's been in college for 6 years. He's not going to spend another year in college. Well, he's already graduated. He's got to take 2 classes for like 6 credit hours, and you're going to pay him $200,000. I think he's going to come back.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I mean, I understand the whole history of it, but on the side
of
like,
me like I know why we are where we are.
I know that. What I'm saying is, on the side of like questioning Wes's coaching and why the games have gone certain ways, and that's what a lot of the members brought up of these collapses, or obviously the NKU loss, and there was questionable losses last year. So obviously, the teams that he's had are not really the teams he wants to have, and sometimes you got to cycle through a few years to build your team. That's at least how it was before the portal, where it was always like, like Tony Bennett at Virginia. It took him a few years. He got that defense up in the top 5. Their offense still sucked. Then he got their offense better. Now they're going to the tournament every year, winning the ACC. And Mick, same thing. Year 5. Now he built something. He got a whole recruiting class in, all these things. And now, because of the transfer portal, they're expecting, people are expecting Wes to just like come up with magic and say, here, I'm just going to build you a team like TJ Otzelberger did at Iowa State, maybe, or some of these like all of a sudden out of nowhere turnarounds.
Otzelberger recruiting to?
Yeah, the Big 12.
What league was Wes Miller recruiting to?
The AAC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are different things.
They are. They're a little different. They're a little different. One's the best and one's like the 9th best. So I get it. But that's where I think that the psyche is like, hey, we're a school that should be in the NCAA tournament every year, automatically. That's what was happening. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we losing to East Carolina on the road? Why are we blowing leads? Why do we lose to NKU by 13? Why can we never beat Xavier?
Scored 11 points in the second half.
We never beat Xavier. Like, dude, chances are he's going to be 0-3 against Xavier, dude. He has to play there next year. It's been 20-something years since UC has won at Xavier. There's a pretty good bet Xavier's going to beat him again next year. So, it's like he's like really now look, obviously the athletic department and everyone involved there has extended him, and they believe in him. The recruits coming down the road believe in him. His players now believe in him. A lot of fans do. But there's always going to be that other side. Hey, it's not enough. Why isn't it happening sooner? And like you said, man, like I'm in a position where I'm just like, man, I got other things, dude. I can't stress over the fact that this season hasn't worked out the way I hoped it would. But I understand where the people who do stress over everything, because I used to be that. So I get it. Like when Mick, like we talked about this when I talked to you on the phone earlier. I think it was Mick's 3rd or 4th year. There was a game at St. John's. UC had like a 4-point lead late. Couldn't freaking inbound the ball. Like 3 straight times in the last minute. And lost
Lance
the game.
With Lance and Deontay and
the Lance year, maybe it was either that or the year before. That 1 year, they flamed out so hard they lost to DePaul in the Big East tournament. It was just like, and everyone was like, dude, Mick, what is, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. And then it was like all of a sudden, even the year that they finally made the tournament, they started 15-0. Then they had a little rough patch in the Big East, and they had to like rally late and beat Louisville and some other teams to get back in it. So it's just, I understand that people are impatient. I understand that it's frustrating to lose these dumb teams and keep losing these. Dude, I'm as frustrated as anybody on this planet that we've lost to Xavier so many goddamn times the last 25, 30 years.
See,
But
we're different in that regard because I just don't think of them really unless they show up in my mentions trying to start shit with me. I really don't think of Xavier. Like,
I don't care.
Like, I don't.
I get that, but I just.
But
dude,
you bring them up all the time. You think about them all the time.
Because it's like Ohio State, Michigan. It's like Michigan fans are probably like, we're never going to beat Ohio State again, and now they're beating them. So it's like, can we turn this around and start kicking their ass? Meanwhile, now they have Sean Miller back. They're getting. They have another good recruiting class. They're in the Big East. They're probably going to make the Final Four this year. So you're not going to be able to say that again.
You're drunk.
Never made the Final Four.
No, you're drunk. I think
who scores every time they go down the floor? Xavier.
They've scored under 70 their last 2 games.
Wow. Well, it's conference play. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, like, I know what the response is from us as, like, dude, it might take a few years, man, and we're going into the Big 12 next year. We could get our fucking asses kicked,
or they might not. They might go 7-11. We don't know that.
I'm not saying I'm not. I said they might.
Like, yeah, everybody's saying they know.
Really ugly next year, or like you said,
or they could get 8 games or 6 games against BYU, Houston, or UCF, and like whoever the worst, West Virginia, and they win 5 of those 6, and they end up 7-11 in the Big 12. Like, we don't know.
I know that we don't know. I'm just saying that we might. Like, when you watch the Big 12,
I might drive off a bridge tomorrow.
But if you watch how we play and how we've been playing the last few years, and you watch Big 12 basketball, yikes. But I understand that, yeah, you know what? He could hit, like, he hit a home run with Landers Nolly. He could hit a couple home runs like TJ Otzenberger did. Otzel or Otzenberger? I never remember. Whatever. Yeah, TJ something or other.
TJO. We'll just call it TJO.
That dude inherited a piece of shit, and he just went and got guys, and all of a sudden they're in the Sweet 16 already. And then this year they're in the top 10, 15. They beat Xavier. How about that? So, like, it's we don't know, but I guess my whole point of this is, like, I understand the frustration from certain people, but it's just like, man,
I do too.
This year just isn't going to happen, man. Like, yeah, maybe we get into the big conference tournament and Vic's healthy, and it's like, maybe we do it. I mean, but we almost beat Houston.
What I was getting to is, on that checklist of, like, things you have to fix on the roster. Okay?
Yeah.
Year 1, you didn't have a checklist. You just had to get a roster.
Yeah.
And then coming into this year, you got 10 things. And I think you thought going into the season, you fixed 5 or 6 of them. Well, Rob, you never really got to find out. Although I will say, when he came back, when he was in the game, he was making a significant difference.
Yeah.
Playing, especially defensively. He was giving you that one guy that you could put on their best player.
Jalen Cook,
he could stop him. And then he blows out his patella tendon. And we never got to see what it would have looked like had he had the progression that everybody else has had this season. Like, for the most part, we have seen guys drastically improve this season.
Odie.
We never got to see that with Rob.
Even though Odie had a couple moments that, oh my God, he's clearly better than he was last year. Vic, clearly better than he was last year. Micah, clearly better than he was last year.
Landers, clearly better than when he got here. Dave, clearly better than he was last year. Like, we never got to see that arc for Rob, because just as he was getting comfortable, he got hurt. Then he came back, made a significant impact in limited minutes, and then he was gone.
Yeah.
So we never got to see that. And we never saw a minute from John Newman against a D1 team this year.
Yeah.
But my point, my larger point is, now you go into next year with even a better understanding of okay, these are the things that we need to fix. Let's see what we have returning. Let's see who wants to come back, who we want back. Let's see who we can get back in terms of Landers. Can you get him back for another year? And then you go into the offseason and you go into the portal and you go into potential like spring recruiting, coaches firing, players reclassifying, whatever, in terms of like high school guys that you might or might not have a chance with. Let's see what they do on that checklist. I know one of those things on that checklist was find downhill guards. Find guards that can attack and create and get paint touches. This is not a team. Like, this is what I tried to argue with Dave last week after the Tulane game. This team doesn't have guards that get paint touches. And that is something that is valued at the highest level because guards that can get to the paint collapse defenses. And collapse defenses create not only scoring opportunities on those paint touches, but kickouts and ball movement and the things we've seen this team be really good at. Like Bergie, like this team has had more 20 assist games than any team I can remember in a long ass time.
This team's shown the ability to score the ball at a high clip quite often this year, which is usually not the case at Cincinnati.
Without excessive offensive talent. They've done it on ball movement and being able to like keep the defense on their heels.
Yeah. But you can
the shots stop falling.
Right. And it's kind of like some of the stuff that worked in the middle portion of the season. Obviously Vic being out is a big issue, but
it changes everything.
But the offense that they had going and the jump shooting and they got hot from three. This is like the best 3-point shooting team, at least it was a few weeks ago when I looked, since 2004 at Cincinnati. Yeah. They were like, I think that's the last time they were above 35%. 2004.
But you know why?
And that team got destroyed by Illinois, by the way. Oh my God, that was one of the worst losses ever.
But do you know why? It's because they were taking good shots.
Right.
And what have we seen so often?
And also Landers Nolly is shooting like 90%. His numbers are insane.
But he's taking open shots. Again, that's like that goes back to what I'm getting at. Like Landers isn't taking a bunch of highly contested, like YOLO deep threes. He's catching and either taking a good shot or pump faking, dribble relocation into an open shot. Dave has his step back, which is his biggest weapon. He's using that to create separation.
He's made quite a few catch and shoots.
He has. He's been better at catch and shoot than he ever was. Yeah. So I think there needs to be like an acknowledgement of there has been a significant advancement offensively into modern basketball for this program. But what they still don't have is that paint touch guard. That guy that comes off a ball screen, plays downhill, and makes everything else easier for everybody.
Yeah.
And they went out and they recruited 2 of those guys.
Right.
Now,
and obviously,
one's a JUCO, one's a freshman. Does that work next year in the Big 12?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, clearly defensively they have a long way to go. I mean, they've gotten better as the season's gone on, which is a good sign. But they still have to go even further with that. But yeah, I agree with that.
What you hope defensively is this year, at least the concept is in place.
Yeah. And I went, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I was just messing around and I went and looked at when UNC Greensboro played Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament. I think it was Wes's, he went to the tournament twice. I think the other time he lost by maybe like 9 or 11, but he had a lead on Gonzaga with a minute to play. And Gonzaga made a 3, I believe. And I think Greensboro maybe rimmed one out or something weird happened. And they really had a very good chance to win that game. I think it was a 4-13 game, if I remember right. And that team was in that game and against a team like that. So, and you go back and I remember I also found a clip of his offense, some of it breakdown, like some of the stuff he was doing. So the one thing I guess the one last thing I want to get to before we end this is, I
a
know
long
it's
one.
40 minutes. All right, let's just do like 5 minutes on this. So some of these chuck and pray possessions at the end of games, it happened against Tulane. It happened the other night.
I disagree that they were chuck and play. I would argue that they are what this offense is designed to get.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, where is anything else other than, hey, Landers, here's the ball, shoot a three. Hey, Landers.
They did it. They did it last night, Berg. You didn't see it, but they did it last night. The adjustment was getting Landers mid post on a guard.
I saw the mid post and he missed that shot, and then he
went 1 for 5.
Yeah. So
he went 1 for 5 from the mid post.
Yeah. So it's like, well, can we draw up something that's like a play, not just like here's the ball to
there's no magical answer
yeah,
to get somebody downhill that can't get downhill,
or just something that does something different. I get it. So that would be like the one thing where if I'm really being devil's advocate, I'm like, dude, can you come up with like a cool like action that, you know, misdirection and some stuff over here, and then the guy's open over there, and we get a layup.
They did that, and guys get wide open shots and they miss
shots. I'm saying, like, can we get a layup or a paint touch
on
off
this
of some
team?
action?
Probably not.
Okay, well, that's all I'm saying. Because, like, I mean, John Brandon, you say what you want, like, he drew up a lot of shit that got layups.
Yeah, he also created a locker room that imploded on itself.
I know.
Everybody transferred.
Like, so can we draw a play up at the end of a game that's not just here, shuck a three? That's all. But I know when you don't have Vic, that severely hampers what you can call, because he's just so good.
And he's been awesome in the pick and roll. So what you would draw up is Vic, top of the defense, all screen. Vic, you've got somebody the defense has to recognize in Vic.
Yeah.
And then you can play downhill because the defense has to adjust.
Right.
The defense in the last 2 minutes of a game, if you're a head coach, Berg, do you give a shit what Odio Guama or Kalua Zekpe does off a high ball screen?
No.
So what do? You put all the attention on the ball handler, you deny passing lanes, and you force what we've seen.
Right, and like you said, so those guys can't get downhill. So it's like, well, how do we get them to get downhill? Did we do any DeJulius and Nolly ball screens together? Did we ever try that?
I've never really seen that. I mean, they've done side ball screens where they do like a double screen where, I mean, there's been not high ball screens, but there's been some side ball screen action.
Okay.
With
I feel like that. I feel like that's
to get Landers mid post.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's how you get him open mid post on a mismatch. You throw it to him, and then he's got to make the shot. He didn't make the shot.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, I watch a lot of NBA, so I see how these different pick and roll combinations work, and I just assume that, like, you know, we'll just put our best two players in a pick and roll. The defense is like going to be all confused. Who do I go with? If this guy's rolling or this guy's popping, and then they get an advantage. But maybe that's
and then the guy misses the shot.
Yeah.
You know what they don't do in the NBA? They don't miss the shot. So it looks great there because they make a lot of those shots.
Yeah. Well, look. So what do we got left? We got is UCF next on the road?
UCF on the road, Temple at home, Memphis on the road. So I'm looking at Twitter on this Memphis game tonight. Memphis played UCF tonight.
Oh, what's going on with that?
So Rob Doster is a friend of mine, runs Field of 68. He says this, the end of the Memphis UCF game was probably the drunkest basketball I've seen this season. What a gloriously beautiful disaster that was. In the last 5:21 of the game, Memphis had 8 turnovers, attempted 1 free throw, a missed front end, and attempted 1 field goal.
Wow.
The game winner was 7 seconds left on the clock.
Oh.
Somebody else chimes in below. Memphis scored 4 points in the last 10:23 of the game. 2 of those points was on a goaltending. And then the bucket with 7 seconds left that gave them the win.
Kendrick Davis?
Franklin. Kendrick Davis actually he sprained his ankle apparently or something, was on the sidelines in a boot for most of the second half of that game.
God, that game that we just played them, he did everything he wanted. And then DeAndre Williams, oh my God, it was like, what? Like just everything they wanted to do. We didn't help ourselves in that game either by being like fundamentally just inexplicable. Anyway, so BCJ people, keep if you're into every possession and you're pissed off about the East Carolina game, I don't blame you.
I get it.
I used to be that guy. I just think this season's toast in terms of an at-large. So why are we? Who cares?
You're gonna get everybody healthy for the tournament and see if you can win the tournament.
Yeah, you never know, man. You could get hot. Who knows? But otherwise, if you don't, hopefully that NIT selection committee gives us the nod as like a 7 seed, and
win these 2 games at home. Beat Temple at home, SMU at home. See what happens. UCF and Memphis on the road.
What do we got? We got 17 wins.
17, yeah.
Okay, so we got to get to 20.
Yeah, I would think so.
So last night probably that hurts.
That hurts. Going into last night, most of the NIT-ologists had UC as a 4 or 5 seed. I would guess that cost them a couple seed lines.
Seriously have that?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is NIT people. Yeah.
Okay.
Some people are 8 the fuck up, Bird.
Wow, man. Can you imagine spending your time doing that shit?
No. No. Who do I think is the 73rd best team in the country? Fuck out of here, man. Come on. All right. Thank you, bro.
All right, go
this
ahead.
Was a long one. Thank God we didn't go live. Could you imagine incorporating the chat with this? Whoo! We'd have been here for 2 hours. That's the nightcap. Berg's the best. We'll see you next time. Thanks to Galactic Fried Chicken right here on Bear.